I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of following along with all the information we're getting on Planet X. Nibiru. Mm-hmm. It's also known as the Destroyer, the Red Star, Wormwood, and the Dragon.
Well, it's definitely earned its name, the Destroyer. Let me tell you, from what I've heard and seen with Planet X, I've talked to some astrologers, not astrologers, but archaeologists rather, like Michael Cremo. And he says that, there's evidence that life has been wiped off this planet many times in the past.
Yes, that's true. In fact, one of the other passages when Planet X came by happened when Moses was taking the Jews out of Israel, or out of Egypt. And the time before that was when Noah and built his ark and had the great flood. And each time it comes around, and that's about every 3,600 and some years, each time it comes around, it comes at a different angle and a different distance from the earth, so that sometimes the passages are not nearly as severe, and sometimes they're more severe. And this one is being projected as being a very severe one because it's coming very close, and the angle at which it's coming, it's going to be quite severe. When it passes the Earth, it's going to be about 14 million miles away, and that sounds like a lot. But when you're talking about these huge, massive cosmic bodies, it really isn't. This planet, Nibiru, is four times the diameter of the Earth.
And it will cause quite a gravitational pull when it goes by.
And it's doing it right now. This gravitational push and pull, this electromagnetic ping-pong game that's being played right now between Planet X and the Earth is causing all of this unusual weather. And this unusual weather is happening all over the globe.
Did it stall our Gulf Stream too?
Oh yeah, the Gulf Stream is way out of whack. Now the magnetosphere is way out of whack. I never knew how to read a magnetosphere, but it has all these strings. It looks like it has all these strings coming off of it, being blown by a fan, so that they stretch straight out behind the Earth, and that's what it looks like when it's in a normal state. But what it's looking like now is every one of those little strings is just a jumbled mass, all intertwined with each other. And when that happens, that is also an indication of a magnetic change in the pole shift, magnetic pole shift. So when all of this happens, it bodes not well for the planet, because there are going to be massive earthquakes. Already the large tectonic plates have started moving, and we're what we consider, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the pole shift, we're now at a 7, the beginning of a 7.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And
I've seen pictures of Africa, and it shows that it's literally splitting.
It is. And Africa is going to roll. It's going to roll to the, it's the opposite way that the South America is going to roll. So I'm getting my east and my west mixed up. But I think South America is rolling to the west. The top of it is, let me start at the beginning of that.
Okay.
Because when the 7 started, which was at the end of December, Indonesia started sinking. What happened was that the Indo-Australia plate started tipping, and that's tipping Indonesia down. All the flooding that's happening in Indonesia, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people are being evacuated and relocated. They've lost villages all along the coastline of all of those islands in Indonesia. But it is sinking, and then there's a folding, a trench in the Pacific that's going to fold, which is going to allow South America to roll, and that's going to roll to the west. So the top of South America, around Colombia, is going to pull to the west, and that could move a good 250 miles. And as it moves with those tectonic plates going down, it's going to take the Caribbean down. It's going to take Central America with it. Panama, right at the present time, is flooding. Panama City, it's been incredible. And we're not getting any of this information in the news.
No, we're not.
No, we're getting this information from people. There's a network, and people who are living in these countries are giving us the real scoop, because our government does not want us to know what's happening. Our mainstream media will never tell us the truth. So you have to go to these underground sources to get the information.
Now, does the mainstream media know the truth? I mean, I'm sure the top-notch do, but, I mean, as far as the reporters, if they did try to cover this, they'd be told that they better not, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. They would be gagged. Absolutely. This has been a 27-year cover-up by the governments from all over the world. And why would they keep us from knowing what's going to happen? Well, it gives them time to rip us off all of our money and build these humongous underground caverns and cities and stock them fully with food and water and medications, etc., and have them very well protected. And that's for them. That's for the elites, the higher-ups. They will allow a certain number of citizens that have some kind of a skill that they need, say scientists, electricians, that sort of thing, if they're maybe under 45 years of age. But anybody over that, it's you're on your own.
I don't suppose they're taking any radio host, huh?
Well, you never know. But no, I don't think so. But so they don't want us to know that they've done all of this and taken care of themselves and taken all the money with them, and that's why we don't have any money. So it's up to us to do what we can do, and we're being told by the Zetas from Zeta Reticuli, who are giving us all this specific information about Planet X. We're being told that we can survive, and actually, if you go, I want to tell you about this website. Everybody has to go on this website.
Okay.
It's called Zeta, Z-E-T-A, Talk, Talk.com. And there are about 6 mirror sites, ZetaTalk2.com, ZetaTalk3.com, and so forth, if you can't get on the main one, because with every passing week, as things are changing on the face of the earth, there are more and more people around the world that are going to this website because it's accurate, it's truth, it's the entire website is an encyclopedia of truth. And so I just encourage everybody to go on that. And then you'll learn on that site that there is another site that you can join called Earth Changes and the Pole Shift. And they're keeping you up to date on a daily basis with what's going on around the world. And Nancy, leader of Zeta Talk, has a newsletter that comes out once a week that you can sign up for, and it's free, and it's all the latest of what's happening. And everybody should be paying attention to it now. And I do think that fairly soon...
Ann, could you please hold that thought? We
Sure.
need to take a station break, and then we'll come back, and I want to pick Late Night in the Midlands. So, okay, Ann, we're back.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
We were talking about Nancy Leader and the newsletter that she has, so just go on the website and sign up for that. also on that website, there's a section that's called Safe Locations. And you can look up where you're living now, and you can find out if it's a safe location or not. And it's very, very valuable. But getting back to what's happening right now, the 7 of 10, we were talking about the Pacific folding, and South America is going to roll, and as it does, it's going to sort of skew around so that Brazil, that hump of Brazil, is on the top rather than, let's see, it would be, what's up there now, Colombia? Brazil would be up on the top, and the, or at least further north, and that's where the new North Pole is going to be.
Oh, wow.
Right off of Brazil. And then the new South Pole is going to be off of the tip of India. And India will be totally underwater, as will probably half of Australia and some other places. But after South America rolls, then Africa is going to roll. And as you said, Africa is beginning to split in two right now. That's going to take the bottom of the Mediterranean down. So pretty much all of the Mediterranean islands are going to go under. And then what happens are the great quakes in Japan are going to start. And that's our clue. Because once that happens, shortly after that, the new Madrid fault in the United States goes.
And won't that split the United States in half as well?
Yes, it will. And it goes from, like, New Orleans up to the Great Lakes, and then it cuts over to the St. Lawrence Seaway. And that's the Mississippi, in some places, will be 100 miles wider than it is now. So it's definitely going to be an inland sea and going to split the country in half. And when that happens, we're going to feel it. I don't care where you're living in the United States, you're going to feel it. And there's going to be tremendous devastation all along that line when it goes. Those are going to be very horrendous earthquakes, and FEMA is now preparing for that to happen.
Is that what all the FEMA camps could possibly be for?
Yeah, that's part of it, yes. Those FEMA camps and all of those liners of the coffins that they
survivors.
have stocked up. And they're also, it's rumored that they're buying up all of the freeze-dried food to have on hand for refugees after this happens.
Oh, how thoughtful.
Yeah, right. Oh, gosh. And so after the Madrid fault makes its adjustment, then there's going to be a tearing in the North Atlantic Rift, and with a European tsunami. The tsunami is going to hit Europe, and it's going to do a lot of damage. So the people in Europe that know about this have started moving inland already. Because we don't know how fast this is going to take place. At some point, it's going to be like dominoes. But we're just at the beginning of the 7 now, and it's been about a month that we're into it. But Indonesia has already dropped. Parts of Indonesia has already dropped 44 feet. So there's a great deal of it that's underwater right now that we're not hearing about. We've been hearing about those biblical floods in Queensland in Australia because this is the first time that's happened in Australia. It has nothing to do with the rains. They didn't have the rains that they were talking about. It was actually the land that's dropping, and that's seawater that's coming in. And then as these large tectonic plates undulate, it tips the land up so that the seawater that it has taken on stays there and doesn't drain back out into the ocean. So it's going to be going to be interesting, to say the least.
I think it's already become interesting, and if anybody's listening from Australia, and you can tell us what that water's like, I'd definitely like to hear from you. We did get a caller from Australia a couple weeks ago who was reporting in from the floods, and
good.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic. I'll tell you,
it is dramatic, and you just don't hear about it. We need to be in touch with people in these countries. We need to find out what they're experiencing and how they're handling it. Also, the Philippines, same thing is happening with the Philippines. Around the edges of Thailand are now also sinking. Pakistan, part of Pakistan has sunk already. They have an inland lake now that they never had before. They took this water on, and it is not draining out. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least.
So do you feel then that 2012 is just a distraction, and that all of this is going to come to an head before December 21st, 2012?
Well, I think when 2012 was predicted, which was a long time ago, it was sort of a general. Looks like, seems to be, might be around this time, 2012. I think it was sort of a marker, but I think it could be any time between now and 2012. I really do not think it's going to go beyond 2012. I think my own personal feeling about this, and it's just a gut feeling that I have, is that we probably only have about 18 months left, max. And that doesn't take us quite, that doesn't take us quite to December of 2012, I don't think. But
no, I don't think so.
The Zetas are not allowed to tell us exactly when the pole shift is going to happen, but they can give us an indication as to markers that are going to happen along the way, and we will be able to tell when the final weeks arrive, and I'll give you that in just a minute here. Okay. I had another thought I wanted to tell you here. I forgot now what it was. Anyway, I'll go ahead and give you those final things then. In the last weeks, this is going to be, say the last 7 weeks, it starts out with 9 days of a very severe wobble in the earth. Now, right now, we're bobbling back and forth, and we are wobbling. And you can tell that. You can prove that. Just go out. Just start paying attention to where the moon comes up and where the sun comes up. You'll see it's at different places, different times. Keep track of it. But at some point...
It's funny you mentioned that, Ann, because I was just talking to Autumn, who was my girlfriend, about this very thing. And it's, it seems like when I was a kid, I don't remember seeing the moon day and night. And now it seems like I do, and you're right, it is in different places. But go ahead.
and you will see it at night, and it'll still be there in the daytime when you get up. And if you'll watch, if you know where the constellations are, if you're familiar with those, just start paying attention to those. I looked out the other night, and my God, the Big Dipper was not where it was supposed to be. So you can prove to yourself that the Earth is bobbling and wobbling, and it's because of Planet X coming in this ping pong game that's going on. There are 2 other planetary bodies that are involved here, but that's another whole story. Venus and the dark twin, Earth's dark twin, which is usually behind us, so we can't see it. Is caught right now with the Earth in sort of a cup, and we're getting bashed and bobbled by all of these particles, the hosing of particles that's coming from the North Pole of Planet X. And this is why there's going to be so much chaos. Eventually, as Planet X comes closer, those two planets will be able to escape out of the cup and get away, so that there won't be quite as much friction. But at that point, Planet X just gloms onto the Earth and just has it in its claw. So that's when the real wobbling and bobbling takes effect, and that's at the beginning of these last 7 weeks. That's the 9 days of the severe wobble. And at that point, Planet X will draw closer in to the Earth, and at that point, everybody on the planet will be able to see it. There won't be any question in anybody's mind as to what's happening, because it'll be there, and it'll be at least as large as a big full moon.
You know, and it wasn't too long ago, I seen a piece that was a story that was released by NASA themselves. I think it was maybe just a couple months ago, but that they had discovered a dwarf star behind the sun. They said, oh, it's always been there, and it's in orbit with the sun. And I'm thinking, is that them preparing us for this dwarf star in the sky?
Well, yeah, we're hearing a lot of things from NASA, and most of it is disinformation.
Well, they did call it a brown dwarf star, so that's why I said I couldn't believe that they actually used those words, but they did.
Yeah. Right, currently, Planet X is not behind the sun. Currently, it's in front of the sun. It's in between the sun and us.
Oh,
so they would like for you to believe it's on the other side of the sun.
And they just said on the news tonight that they've now been able to take pictures of the back of the sun.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
Is that what they're going to show us now, the back of the sun?
Now they're showing us the back of the sun. You know, they put the telescope down in the South Pole back in 1983. IRIS, the infrared astronomical satellite, and that was down in the South Pole, and that's when they first spotted it and started tracking it, was in 1983. So they've been watching it for 27 years, and it was first seen without a telescope in 2003. And actually we have pictures of it. They're coming in from all over the world. Some of the best pictures are coming in from Europe, Norway, and places like that. And it's incredible. There's just no question. You can see it. It's right there.
You know what the shame is? A lot of people, they see these pictures and they don't want to believe it. It's, no, they fixed that up. They did this. That was this or that was that. They've got an excuse for everything.
Well, you know, there are going to be some people that are not going to be able to handle this information. They're not going to be able to accept it. And we have to allow that they can find some excuse. They can find some reason to rationalize it away. Otherwise, they're going to go crazy if they can't handle the information. And there will be a number of people who won't be able to handle it. So we have to be a little gentle with those people that are just going to poo-poo the whole thing. But I would encourage them to at least educate themselves and at least try and, if you want to survive, get into a safe location. Let me just finish up the last 7 weeks here,
okay,
and then we'll go to what we can do to survive.
Yes, okay.
Well, after the severe wobble of the 9 days, then we have about 4.5 days of a lean to the left. The planet is actually, it bobbles over to the left now, but it's going to lean more drastically at that point. Then there's about 2.5 days of progression towards the 3 days of darkness. We are actually going to experience 3 days of darkness. And this is when the planet is tipping way back away from Planet X. And so if we're tipping away from Planet X, that means that we're tipping away from the sun, so that the whole northern hemisphere will not be in the sight of the sun. And that's going to be for 3 days. Of course, the southern hemisphere will have 3 days of all light. So when you get to the 3 days of darkness, you know that there are probably only about maybe 3-4 weeks left before the shift. Then after the darkness, we're going to have 6 days when the sun is going to come up in the west. And then about 18 days where the planet is going to slow its rotation. And it will slow to the point, like a top, when you're spinning a top,
yes,
and you let it run down, and you know how it wobbles, and
gets violent, yes.
It slowly goes down, yeah, and it gyrations, all kinds of gyrations, and then it's going to fall over on its side. It's literally going to fall over on its side. And I have seen this. I have seen this in a dream. It's quite dramatic, and the oceans just slosh out into space when this happens, and then they slosh back across the planet again. It's hard to believe that anybody would survive that, but they are telling us that we can. So after that, then it will right itself. The planet will come back up, will right itself back up, and at this point we'll have the new poles. We'll have the new North Pole and South Pole. And then there'll be a lot of turbulence on the planet for some time afterwards till it settles down after all of this.
Now, when Earth goes through this cycle, then that oil change is actually good for the next 3,600 years, right?
That's right. 3,600 and some years, before they have to worry about it again. And you know what? It's so hard to predict the time because the planet is not coming at a steady speed. It's coming in sort of a retrograde motion, and sometimes it speeds up and sometimes it slows down. So it's really hard to determine. But at some point when it's fairly close to us, it really speeds up, and it will pass overhead. It will come over the top. We'll see it coming overhead, and it will pass out of the solar system. Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. But I want to say too that we have our friends from the stars here with us, and we have over 1,000 cultures in spacecraft around the planet.
I have a question then. Aren't they a little ticked off that the powers that be are building little bunks for themselves and leaving everybody else out to hang to dry? Or?
Oh yeah. But everything is going to come out in the wash. I mean, there is going to be justice eventually, because those people that are involved in that and only considering themselves are going to stay in the third dimension. You can't be that way. You have to be a service to other person in order to go through this transformation, go to the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension, which is the other thing that's happening right now along with this. We are going through a spiritual ascension, and all the energy that's hitting the planet is literally changing the cells in our bodies from carbon base to crystalline base. And it's with the crystalline base cells that we'll vibrate at a higher rate of speed, and we can survive in the fourth and fifth dimension. And those dimensions are going to be less gross and more spiritually inclined. Life is going to be easier, live longer, less illness, get along with our neighbors, no war, that sort of thing.
Do the chemtrails tie into this Planet X thing at all?
No, it sure does. The chemtrails, what was the guy called it, a death dump?
Yeah.
The guy that was, what was he? He was the head of the FBI or CIA or something, or he was one of their top people. I can't remember his name right now, but he's made a video, and he says these are nothing but a death dump.
Oh, I've seen that, yes. Okay.
And it's got to stop. And I thought, why has it taken 12 years for somebody of that stature to come forth and say, stop it, we know what you're doing. You're trying to kill us all off. Because these chemtrails, we've been sprayed with these chemtrails for 12 years now. and there's aluminum in them. There's barium. Let's see, aluminum, barium, and I'm not sure what some of the other things are. But it's going. I mean, we're breathing it, and it's going into the ground. It's going into our groundwater. We're drinking it. I mean, it's insanity.
Aren't they worried that that's going to contaminate them as well?
Well, yes, you would think that it was.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah, you would think that they'd be a little concerned about all of it. But it seems they seem to be on this kick of mass genocide. I mean, they want to get rid of 80% of the population of the earth because we're considered bottom feeders. Mm-hmm. You know, we're expendable, and all we do is consume. And they're planning on surviving in these underground cities and then coming out when it's all over and the planet has settled down and taking up where they left off, and they're positioning themselves to be in charge of the planet, these elites, the powers that be at the present time.
Well, if that's not enough reason to make sure that we all survive, so when they come out of their little caves, we can kick their butts.
Wouldn't that be a big shockaroo, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the people from the stars are trying to level the playing field a bit for us, giving us this information through the Zetas so that we can survive and we can plan for it now.
We have a break coming up here in just about half a minute, so
okay.
So I didn't want to get into too much of the survival thing at this point yet.
Sure.
So let's take the break. It's going to take us a few minutes. So if you got anything you need to do, you got about 8 minutes to do it. So,
okay.
Okay. So we'll be back in a moment, Ann. So hang on the line. I'm Michael Vera. This is Late Night in the Midlands. We're talking with Ann Eller, and we're talking about Planet X, folks. You know, how many guests do I have to get on with incredible credentials?
We were talking about the chemtrails, and there was just one more thing I wanted to say about that. It plays in that the fact that they are clouding up the sky so that you can't get a good look at Planet X, because it can be seen when conditions are right. It can be seen at sunrise and sunset. And you want to look for it down at about the 4 to 5 o'clock position on the sun, just a little off the sun to the right, lower right, 4 or 5 o'clock. So have a look, especially if you're up fairly high and you have a good view of the horizon. If you get it just as the sun is coming up, you'll be able to make out 2 separate suns rising and 2 separate suns going down. And that's why I'm sure you've noticed that the sun is brighter now than it was a couple of years ago or a few years ago. And it's because we're not only getting the brilliance from the sun, but it's also reflecting off this huge red dust tail that's coming in the wake of Planet X. So we're getting a double dose of everything.
Yeah, you know, everything is changing. You know, weather, star formations, you name it. And you have named it tonight. There's a lot changing.
We need to keep our eyes on the skies, really.
I tell everybody every night, keep those eyes posted to the sky. You never know what you might see. Let's take a call. We have Adana from Rochester, New York. You're on Late Night in the Midlands, Adana.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
I have a question for your guest.
Okay.
Because we live so close to Lake Ontario, as you know, we're about a 10-minute walk, and located in Rochester, what does your guest think of the possibility of Lake Ontario tipping water over into this area? And also the other question I have is, Edgar Cayce spoke frequently of Atlantis rising way back in the 40s, and I'd kind of like to know what her thoughts on that are.
Okay.
Hi, Donna. Thank you. I would not want to be near the Great Lakes, any of the Great Lakes.
Okay.
I think if you go on to ZetaTalk.com and look up safe locations, take a look. If you went over into Canada and got further up into the middle area of Canada, you would be safe.
Right.
But you don't want to be near any large bodies of water.
That's pretty good size on Lake
Yes, it
Ontario.
is.
Yeah, and I'd be 100 miles away. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And also 100 miles inland from any ocean, inland from the coast too.
Okay.
All right. As far as Atlantis rising, yes, I think we are going to see at least part of Atlantis rising through all of this.
Well, somebody is, anyways.
Yeah, somebody will see it. It will probably some of it will come up. In fact, have any of you heard about this anomaly that's happening in the Atlantic right now around the Bermuda Triangle?
Yes.
Yeah, they're getting these waves, these energy waves, and they are not man-made. And it's throwing off the GPS, everybody's GPS in a large area. And they're not quite sure what's happening, whether it might have been one of the large crystals that has become activated from Atlantis, or it possibly could be a stargate that is activated and is beginning to open. But they're keeping it as hush-hush as they possibly can, so God knows if we'll learn what it really is.
Go ahead, Adonna.
Is she talking that this is extending further than the, quote, Bermuda Triangle area?
Yes, it is. It goes all the way across Florida into the Gulf there, and then eastward it encompasses a great deal of the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a much more vast area than just the Bermuda Triangle.
Right. Well, then maybe Edgar Casey wasn't too far off about the crystals being the power.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure he wasn't. Yeah, I think he was very accurate about a lot of things. Of course, he thought a lot of this upheaval and the earthquakes and so forth were going to happen a lot sooner.
Right.
So he was a little bit premature in his timing. But I think he said he was going to reincarnate in 100 years, and he was going to be living in Nebraska, and at that time, Nebraska would be the West Coast.
Oh.
Ooh.
Now, I've read a different time span on that, and that there is supposedly a guy already who is a young adult who feels that he is the reincarnation of Edgar Casey.
Yes. Yes, I know him.
I don't know whether to believe that guy or not.
Well,
I read his book, but
he seems to have a lot of good, valid information, and he has some very high up contacts, and he gets some inside information. David Wilcock is his name.
Right.
And I'm not sure that everything that he says is accurate, but I'm not totally sure that that's Edgar Casey reincarnated. Now, as we understand reincarnation, he may be a fragment of that essence. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I'm just sort of I don't know, the jury's kind of out on that as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Now, do you yourself believe in reincarnation?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. I do.
Unfortunately.
Well, I have a question that maybe you can help me with, and it doesn't have anything to do with Planet X, but it does have to do with the reincarnation theory.
Sure.
And it would involve people who feel they're born gay.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, a number of years ago, it just sort of came to me that they may have spent a number of lifetimes as one particular gender, coming back this time in the opposite, and that their soul didn't make the total transition.
I totally agree with you there. I think in some cases that is true. I really do. I don't think in all cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think in some cases that's very valid, yes.
Oh, it's good to hear somebody else can think my way. Well, I thank you very much.
Well, you're certainly welcome. Thanks for calling in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adana. Have a good night. Thanks
You
for
too.
listening.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, lines back open, 803-748-9293, and you can also call in on Skype, Late Night in the Midlands. And if you do call in on Skype, I'll answer you. I might not say anything to you right away. You might have to wait a few seconds, so don't hang up. Okay, so, and we're getting into this, I believe we're getting close to the survival part of
Okay.
this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we just mentioned that you want to be 100 miles inland from the oceans or any large bodies of water like the Great Lakes.
And that doesn't assure that you're going to make it, because the earthquakes and other things could certainly take you out as well.
Right. As far as the volcanic eruptions, you probably want to be about 100 miles away from a volcano also. At least you want to be not downwind of the volcanoes, because they're going to be dumping an awful lot of ash. In fact, they're saying that every volcano that has gone off in the last 10,000 years will be going off when this all happens.
Now, I've heard from many that Montana is a good place to be, but now isn't Yellowstone an issue?
Well, Yellowstone is an issue, but they don't believe that it's going to be the gigantic, what's the word I'm looking for?
Eruption?
The big one. They don't think it's going to be the big one. They think that there will be enough pressure being released from all these other places, all these other volcanoes going off, that it won't be the super, that's what I'm looking for, the super volcanic eruption of Yellowstone. But yes, it will be erupting too. Montana, I think, is a fairly good place to be, but I think it's in the northeast area, the northeast corner.
Okay, because I don't know if you remember, but last time you were on, we had a woman call in who has the safe haven, and so yeah, she's called in on this show a few times. So
yes, she was in the northeast corner, wasn't she?
I believe so.
Of
yes.
Montana.
Doxy was her name. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, as far as I know, she still wants people to come up there. So
yeah, she's got homes and places for people, and yeah, so she keeps trying to get me to go, and it's hard.
Yeah, where are you located now? Are you in South Carolina now?
Yes, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay.
So I'm done for, huh?
Well, how far are you from the Appalachians?
I'll have to ask Nova. Nova? What is about a couple hours, I guess? I would have to say a couple hours, but
the Appalachians would be a good place for you to go.
Now, another guest who I had on said it would be a great place to go, except for millions of people below would be heading up there with the same ideas.
Well, it's true. Yeah, that's very true. There'll be a lot of people that will be migrating. And that's one thing to think about. If you're going, you want to be out of the cities, because the cities are just going to become a death trap. Mm-hmm. There's going to be no food, no water. People are going to be crazy. People are going to be insane. You want to get your family and your small survival group out into the hinterlands, outside of the city and off the beaten track. So if people are migrating, you don't want to be on that main migration route. And you want to plan to camp. It's going to be a camper's life for several years before things can get going again. You want to stock up on food and water and medical supplies, and you want to be able to move. To be mobile. Keep gas in the car, keep cash on hand, and be ready to move at a moment's notice. But, for most people, we can't leave our jobs, and we just can't go off into the countryside and set up camp until it's,
Well, at this point, I can. Yeah, I'm doing radio, so,
Yeah.
and I'm not getting rich off it, so.
Yeah, you could, couldn't you?
I sure could.
Well, keep in mind, that the time to get to think about surviving and to plan to survive is now, if not yesterday. And so it's time to move for everybody. So if you have to leave your job, leave your job.
See, I would go to the mountains over here in North Carolina with a small group and set up and just be ready to defend what's yours, I guess, right? Because
right.
Not everybody's going to. A lot of people are going to go down just in the city. So
that's right.
I think the few that would get up in the mountains would be more willing to be team players, I would hope. Either
sure.
that or they'd meet their maker.
Well, and it's going to be very important to be with the people that you know and you can trust.
Right.
For this period in time. I want to say something about the other type of preparation is spiritual. And you need to be able to get quiet and get centered, because every one of us is surrounded by our spiritual guides, and they are pledged to help us through this. We need to listen to them. They will give us direction. And so if you can just sit and be quiet and still your mind, you'll be able to know what to do, because they will be giving you that information. And just follow that gut feeling, whatever your gut tells you to do. If it tells you to move to the mountains, move to the mountains.
You know what tears me apart is that, see, I have kids, and they're kind of split up in different areas of the country. And I don't. If I went and took them and ran to the mountains, I would certainly be put in jail for kidnapping, probably, because the mothers will never believe this. So, what do you do for people like that? I mean, what do you?
Well, all you can do is try, and tell them and point them also to the information and let them do their own reading and their own research. It's going to be hard, because there's going to be a lot of that we'll have to deal with. And we need to understand that at some point we have to just let it go. And we have to do what our own individual self is telling us to do, because we're not all on the same path, even if we're in the same family. And some in the family are going to be choosing to go into spirit. Some will be choosing to survive. Being the age that I am, I don't plan to survive. I've had it with the third dimension. I'm just ready to shed this body and go on to the next. And that's something we've got to remember. There's no death. There really is no death. We just shed the physical body and go on. We're in our light body, and we're in the next dimension, and we're getting ready for our next incarnation.
Well, I just don't want to get shortchanged. I'd like to have that 80, 90 years of this torture here before I move on.
This really is hell. It's a prison planet here. The planet itself is actually a prison planet in this whole cosmos. And not only that, but the human physical body is another jailhouse. So we're in two. And my God, that's why you talk to anybody that's had a near-death experience, and it's so glorious, it's so wonderful, it's so freeing, and they talk about soaring and this wonderful love and wonderful light that none of them want to come back. And they're devastated when they have to come back into their body. That's what you look forward to when you drop your physical body. Nothing to be afraid of, and life goes on, life after life after life. And hopefully each one gets a little better and a little easier and a little happier. And that's where we're going from here, I'll tell you.
So if this should be a lesson of any kind, it should certainly be a lesson to mankind for whoever survives, that you got 3,600 years to put your minds together, put your hearts together, put the technology in useful places like getting off this planet, rather than spending the last several thousand years developing weapons to kill each other.
Oh, I know. Isn't it crazy?
It is.
It's just total insanity. Let's see. I think it would be a good thing to do to take a first aid class, if you could, or to take a class in survival. There's enough time to do both of those. Those will be used. You cannot depend on first responders because they will be so overwhelmed with what's happening that they won't be able to rescue us. They won't be able to come to help us out at all.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some people that will be lifted onto spacecraft, and not everybody, but there will be some. Most of us will go into spirit, though. The greater percentage will drop their physical bodies and go into spirit and start planning our next incarnation. Some may escape through portals that will open. There will be some portals around the planet opening up, going into another dimension, and the people who happen to find those and hop through will find themselves a lucky few in another dimension.
Okay, Ann, hold it right there. We've got a short break here coming up, then I want to get right back. Ann, we're back.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to mention that I read something just this evening that is very shocking, that the Rothschilds have bought the TV's Weather Central.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Like they need to own another aspect, you know?
Exactly, as if we're getting any truth anywhere anyway. All of the earthquakes that are being reported on the USGS have all been dumbed down. They've either been dropped or they have been estimated way much lower than they really are. So we're not getting near the extent of what's happening around the planet. So this is just another case of they're going to control the weather reports, and you're not going to hear about everything around the planet. So, and I wanted to mention the food crisis that's coming.
Okay.
Very soon, and this is a direct result of the droughts and the floods that we've been having. The world's grain supply has fallen to 72 days of consumption. The Prime Minister of Putin was ordering an export ban on all grains from the motherland. The global stocks of corn are the lowest level in 37 years. And it's all due to the fact that China has had unprecedented flooding, India due to flooding, Canada due to drought, Russia due to drought, Ukraine due to drought, Australia drought and locust plague, and now floods, Pakistan flooding that it's never had before. And the 2010 food crisis, they're calling it the 2010 food crisis because it started in 2010, let's see, what does it say here? It says the 2010 food crisis is different. It is the crisis, and that's in capitalized letters. And then it just goes on from there. Russia has ordered the immediate building of 5,000 additional bomb shelters in Moscow to protect the citizens of the motherland, and ordered them to be completed by 2012. But that's because of Planet X.
So Russia is trying to help their citizens, and the United States is not.
That's right.
Wow.
You might want to leave the United States before all of this starts coming down. I mean, and why have Bushes and everybody else bought land in South America?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yes. One other thing, this talks about Obama's Fortress America plan. And this report says that it includes all of North America, in which towards the end of the Americans are financing the building of a giant separation wall between Mexico and Guatemala. Now, mind you, we can't put up a wall between the Southwest and Mexico. We have to go down to Mexico and build that wall along Central America because they want to keep out, and they're afraid that all the starving masses from Central America are going to come through Mexico and up into the United States. And that's going to happen when South America rolls and they start to take down Central America. That's when they're all going to start coming north.
So South America, then, for the most part, as long as it's inland, will have safe havens as well. Obviously,
yeah, as long as you can get up in the mountains. I think one of the things to remember is to be about 1,000 feet above sea level, because, excuse me, within 2 years after the pole shift, the sea level is going to have risen about 700 feet.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you go to at least 1,000 feet now,